Okay guys, so I'm at ULEZ Protest. There's a lot of people out today. Let's see if we can get some good interviews. What do you think Sadiq's chances of winning the next mayoral election is?
Well, at the moment, probably too good. But we need really people to carry on with these protesting and remind people just how difficult, how bad this is and how it affects so many people. So, you've got to be realistic about these things. It's going to take an earthquake to get rid of Sadiq Khan, but it needs everybody who's opposed to ULEZ to come out and back Susan Hall. She's the only candidate that can beat him, and it's really important that they do that.
What do you think about Susan Hall and Howard Cox teaming up to prevent splitting the vote?
Well, I'm against. I think the electorate don't like deals. They don't really like it. I think it looks a bit suspicious in their mind. And actually, usually when you see that, quite often the electorate will rebel against it and actually do something different. So, and I think each has their own role to play. So I'm not suggesting that they team up, but I think they can certainly coordinate on things like ULEZ and work together. Because where you agree, you should work together. That's really, really important.
So what do you think about the Blade Runners vandalizing ULEZ cameras, and how long do you think Sadiq Khan can keep putting up these cameras?
Well, it's a war of attrition, isn't it? I don't condone for 1 minute what the Blade Runners do, because clearly, anyone who breaks the law, it's no good, because we can't pick and choose the laws that we want. However, what seems to happen at the moment is that people, Khan puts up the cameras, they take them down, they vandalise them, they get them changed, they do it again. So it's a cycle at the moment because people are very angry, they're very frustrated, and I get that. The democratic process failed because he had a consultation and he didn't listen to the results of the consultation. So they feel let down, they feel betrayed by the system. And Mr. Khan is fully responsible for that. And therefore he should do something. He should actually roll this back because it's not working. All the figures show that it's not working. Today I put my life at risk by coming here to this demo today. I went on the underground, and of course the air pollution there is far worse than it is here. And he does nothing about that. So it's not about air pollution, it's about raising money because he's bankrupt. He's morally bankrupt and politically bankrupt and financially bankrupt.
So do you think there should be structural changes to the GLA, considering how undemocratic it has been, and to make Sadiq Khan more democratically accountable?
Well, if I had my way, I'd abolish the whole thing like we did in 1986. And actually, London worked perfectly well without a GLA, without a mayor for all those years. And actually, we could go back to that. And I think that would be far more sensible. And let the boroughs decide for themselves. Give that power back to the boroughs. So if Hackney want to have a ULEZ camera, well, let them. But we can opt out in Bromley and Bexley and other places.
Would you urge Rishi Sunak to step in?
I've already done that and told him and the government to step in under Section 143. They should have done it a long time ago. They should actually come out and talk to people today, but they've never ever come and talked to us protesters, the government. And it's time that they did. Time that they actually listened to me. We're not horrible people, we're not going to shout at them, we're going to have a reasonable conversation with them. So I invite them and I challenge them to come and have a conversation with us and see how they can help all the protesters here today. And as you hear, when cars go by, there's lots and lots of people that are supporting us, even now. And this will continue. Those people who think that this is going to stop, it's not, because it's so unjust. And when something is so unjust, people won't give up. They will fight and fight to the very bitter end.
Why do you think Susan Hall won't completely repeal ULEZ? She's only repealing the expansion, but she's not getting rid of it completely, whereas Howard Cox is completely getting rid of it.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds good in theory, doesn't it? Get rid of it all. However, ULEZ has been around for a long time in inner London, and there have been votes where it's been supported and nobody's stood against it and got rid of it. So I don't think realistically you're fighting a battle which has already been decided to a certain extent. So Susan Hall is being very pragmatic and sensible. She's saying to people in central London, actually, you've got the worst air pollution, far worse than outer London. You can keep your ULEZ cameras in there, and we will remove the expansion, which is where it's hurting most of all.
So Sadiq is polling at around 33%, and Susan Hall is a runner-up at around 17.5%. What's her strategy to overtake Sadiq Khan and win the vote?
Well, I don't know exact strategy, but she's got to put communities first. To my mind, if she puts communities first, she will win, because this is about the impact on communities, not just here, but across London. And communities are impacted all over the place. Look at knife crime, for example. That impacts other communities, and she should really be putting that first. Let me just put things in perspective. In terms of children that die from asthma, nearly twice as many people die from knife crime in this city than die from asthma of youngsters. So therefore, you'd think that the priority would be stopping knife crime, stopping the drugs proliferation that's going out throughout this city. And if I was Susan Hall, I'd be promoting that, and I'm sure she will come the time. I haven't spoken to her about it, but I'm sure she will promote all of those things.
So Rishi Sunak has recently banned zombie knives, but do you think these knee-jerk bannings are really effective at stopping knife crime at a national level?
On the whole, banning things doesn't work. What works is education and good policing, stop and search, making sure that you take knives off the street, but also you get rid of the causes. And one of the causes behind most crime is organised crime through drugs and trafficking, etc., etc. And if you tackle those, and you tackle those drug barons, you would certainly do a lot more for the safety of people in London. You do things for people's mental health, you'd improve the health service as a result of it, you'd reduce knife crime, you'd reduce drug dependency, you'd reduce dependency on all the social services and the NHS that relies on all those people that are addicted and get involved in crime, and as a result of crime might end up in hospital. So there's a whole plethora of things that can actually benefit society by really tackling sort of drug crime really, really hard.
What's your final message to the voters?
Stick with us and vote for Susan Hall when the time comes.
Thank you very much.
Good man.
Many people in boroughs across London, on the outsides, and our neighbours all do not want it. 50% of vans are still non-compliant. A tiny proportion have actually gone for the actual small amount of money that's available. The key thing is people don't want this, and then we're being lied to by the mayor, who's doubling down on a false lie of 4,000 deaths a year, talking about things that just are not true, like all these lung issues which Queen Mary University did not show, and the Imperial's College own peer research on the commissioned 800,000 piece says there was not substantiated. So he's lying to us. They're not fair, they're undemocratic, they're egregious, they need to go. So we're saying Rishi Sunak and the Conservatives should do something about it, but so should Keir Starmer. Many in Labour do not want this. It's going to impact the working people the most. The word Labour and ULEZ just don't go together. Working people, decent, hard-working people in London and our surrounding neighbourhoods. So we're here to say this has not stopped, this has only just begun. People are challenging this like they're challenging low emission zones and clean air zones in the Midlands, in Scotland, like with low traffic neighbourhoods, and we've already seen a reversal in Newcastle yesterday. We've seen in Glasgow the low emission zone has actually seen 10% increase in pollution in the last 2 months. This is anti-scientific, this is anti-democratic, and many more people are going to be getting involved in the challenge together.
And so what do you want? You're protesting now, just as Rishi Sunak goes into Prime Minister's questions. What do you want him to do?
Well, Rishi Sunak, we used to hear we can't do anything because of the EU. Now we hear we can't do anything because of these technicalities. At the end of the day, this is an attack on ordinary Londoners, and there's a fight going on between the government and between the mayor. Partly it's about money and TfL, £500 million. We all know that. But we, the public, are the ones being forced to suffer as a consequence. The Prime Minister should get involved, and Mark Harper should get involved. We should have this stopped. You know, some councils are not putting signs up. We know some people are going to challenge legally. We've already seen a precedent for that. But the key thing is, this is damaging. When we should be in recovery, building jobs, building economies, building livelihoods, this is an attack on everyone, and it should stop.
And can you comment on I think it's called the Blade Runners, who are cutting down the ULEZ cameras?
Yeah, well, the Blade Runners are now becoming very well known. They're kind of like popular folk heroes for many people. One of the things is when people think that they're being ignored, when they know they're being ignored, they're being treated with contempt, then some of them will take things into their own hands in lots of different ways. What we're saying at Together and with the Stop Coalition, with the Stop ULEZ Coalition, is for people to get involved, to tell their MPs and councillors, to take the fight back locally, to protest, to campaign. It's an election year, it's a general election year and a mayoral election. They're all very aware of this, they're all nervous about votes. And we say that the public should be at the heart of things. That's why we say take back democracy together. The public's interests, our needs, development, better economy, investment, infrastructure, services, not surveillance, limits, restrictions, taxes, fines. That's not what we want.
Okay, so what do you think about Sadiq Khan's chances at the next mayoral election?
Well, a lot less now that he's introduced this undemocratic tax on the poor.
So what do you think about Susan Hall's chances against Sadiq Khan, the Tory minister, the Tory councillor?
Not great chances because the Tories are pretty much disliked at the moment for what they have done and what they're doing. And I think everyone pretty much knows that Susan Hall has no chance of winning. It's a wasted vote if you vote for the Conservatives now. Look at all the polls, she's getting nowhere and it's going to be worse. So you need to go with, I think, the best chance and the motorist darling, Howard Cox. Obviously, I would say that because he is the Reform UK mayoral candidate. But he's got a serious chance of unseating Khan, and that's really what we need to do.
What do you think about the Blade Runners who are vandalising cameras, and how long do you think Sadiq Khan can withstand all these damages to his cameras?
I think it's great for Ian Duncan Smith to support them, doing it within his constituency. It is obviously illegal, so it's difficult to actually be too pro. But when the law is an ass, people do take things into their own hands. So it's very understandable what they're doing. I just think it's a real shame that people are risking a criminal record to try and cure us of this unjust tax. So it's not. I actually feel sorry for them because they probably will get caught at some stage, and they will face court in a criminal record. And I think it's necessary that we do fight this because if he was a decent person, Khan would have waited until after the next election on the May the 2nd, and then he'd have a mandate to do it. Whereas, apparently he bought these cameras, put the order in before they did the public consultation, and then the public consultation was, not in favour of the ULEZ expansion. So he's done everything wrong, and he's attacking the people who, at the moment, in the cost of living issues we have, can least afford it. He's attacking people's freedoms, the freedom of movement, of transport.
Okay, so what do you think about Howard Cox and Susan Hall potentially teaming up to not split the vote?
Well, I know we were going to ask the Conservatives to stand down so they don't split the vote. When that will happen, I do not know. I can't see the... we've also offered Susan the deputy mayorship position if she stands down. I think we'll wait until closer to the time and see where the polls are going. There's so many people who are actually uncommitted at the moment or not going to vote. If the don't votes vote for us, we'll win. So if they get off their butts and actually come and vote. I know there's a lot of voter apathy at the moment because there's absolutely zero trust in politics. And that's one of the things as a party we want to do. We need to regain the trust and get rid of the toxicity in the House of Commons.
Do you think that Keir Starmer or Rishi Sunak will step in to either get Khan out, or would you think Rishi will step in?
No, Keir, or Mr. Flip-Flop as people call him, doesn't really have his own, policies. He tends to go with what he's told. Yesterday in the Lords, Mandelson was clapped and congratulated for being back in charge, and that's all to do with the Labour reshuffle. So Keir is pretty much a figurehead. He's not really in charge of the party. We have influence from Blair and Brown again coming into the Labour Party, so look out for that. But Keir, there's no way he can cancel it now. And Rishi will not. He has the ability to actually end it, but he won't do that because Labour Party are hemorrhaging votes over this. So why would he stop it when it's damaging the Labour Party? So Rishi's playing politics, and we are the only ones who say we will actually not only get rid of the extension but the initial ULEZ, but what we will do, what the Conservatives won't do, is actually remove the cameras. The Conservatives see that as a wonderful way of controlling people and ensuring that later on they can do paper mile and all other sorts of things. These cameras are very high tech. They can also do facial recognition as well as AMPR. So we're stepping towards a dystopian future of control by the government. And the Reform UK now is the only party which is saying we want a small state, small government and low tax.
What's your final message to the voters?
Well, we're quite a centralist party, so do not be afraid to vote for us if you are from the centre left or the centre right. But also, everyone who is so sort of homeless politically, come and have a look at our website, see if we resonate with you. And everyone who really doesn't want to vote, please do, because your votes are the ones that will actually make the difference. Because in the London mayoral vote, the turnout is very small. So if the people who didn't vote last time come in this time, that would be enough to swing it whichever way they go.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So what do you think Sadiq Khan's chances are now at the next mayoral election?
I think his chances are worrying because he does have a decent amount of fanatical support. The problem we've got is we've got a lot of support where people think, oh, I'm fed up of government, so I'm not going to vote. The problem with that is they're effectively letting Sadiq Khan walk through the door. Now, Susan Hall's got a lot of support, Howard Cox has got a lot of support. Well, we kind of need them to amalgamate together because we've got the first past the post system. So what are Sadiq Khan's chances? He could just slip through with a few votes, even with a minority, which is a shame.
Yeah, so I spoke to Simon Fawthrop, but he seems like he doesn't want to join with Reform. So it seems as though Susan Hall is being a bit stubborn. Do you think that she will finally give in and join with Howard Cox?
I think she would ask Howard Cox to join her, but then of course she only wants to get rid of the ULEZ extension. Howard Cox wants to get rid of the whole of ULEZ. I think Howard Cox would be a very good choice. He's a good MP. He's a good politician. And actually, I could say he's not really a politician at all. He's just he's a campaigner. He's a Fairfield fighter. He started Fairfield years ago, so he's doing it because he cares. Obviously, it's difficult to say about Susan Hall. She wears the badge. She wears the Conservative badge. She does have the Conservative backing, but then I have seen her on Mayor's Question Time and the GLA meetings, and she puts up a very good fight with Sadiq Khan. So equally, both of them good candidates, but obviously Susan Hall doesn't want to get rid of the whole of ULEZ. She only wants to get rid of the outer London ULEZ. But of course, the whole of the ULEZ is flawed. For example, motorcycles are not automatically compliant, which they should be, and they are indeed in every other clean air zone in the country. So it's worrying because we've got first past the post. We could have a split vote situation, which I'd like to get rid of first past the post, which is why we carry this copy of democracy. First past the post is very undemocratic.
What do you think about the Blade Runners and them damaging the cameras? And do you think Sadiq Khan will give in because he can't afford to replace the cameras?
Okay, how do I answer this question?
Of course you disavow.
Of course you can't, yes. Obviously when I got arrested for allegedly stealing ULEZ cameras, I wasn't guilty. It was nothing to do with me, and I just happened to be there, wrong place, wrong time. I know why people are doing it. I've thought about to answer this now. Right, I know why people are doing it. People are doing it because they are fed up. They're doing it because they are desperate, because they see no way out. They see that the government's not listening. They see that Sadiq Khan's not listening. Politicians aren't listening, and it looks like the government are just going to let Susan Hall walk through in May, and the hell with us until May, which means between now and May, lots of businesses are going to go bust. Lots of people are going to feel suicidal, feel under pressure, feel under stress. you know, I hear many people quitting their jobs because they can't afford to go to work. Certainly carers that do a night shift have to pay twice if they do a single night shift, pay before midnight and after midnight. You know, it's out of order, and it's the worst possible time. We're in the middle of a cost of living crisis. All I say, Sadiq Khan should put it off to the May elections, and if he gets elected on a ULEZ mandate, then that's it. Democracy is won, we've lost, and we'll all go home.
Do you think there should be structural changes to the GLA to make Sadiq Khan more democratically accountable?
Absolutely, I think we should get rid of the GLA because it's proved to be like a dictatorship. He didn't put this in his manifesto. He ignored the consultation, so he hasn't got the mandate for ULEZ at all, not even for the expansion. So he's basically lied to get elected, got elected, and then said, oh, I'm doing what I want. Oh, I've made a difficult decision. Oh, I'm a leader. I'm just doing what I have to do. No, you lied to the public to get elected, and that's the problem. He needs to put it back to the election and get a mandate after May. And if he wins, then that's great. That's hard luck for us.
What's your final message to the voters?
Up yours, Sadiq Khan. Hashtag.
Okay. All right, thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So you're at another ULEZ protest again.
Yeah.
What do you think Sadiq Khan's chances are now that it's gone through? You think he's going to stick through it?
I think he probably will stick with it. I don't think it's a good idea, to be honest with you. He's kind of signed his own death warrant, really, hasn't he? You know, it's a suicide mission. I don't know why he doesn't backtrack on it. He needs to backtrack on it, really. It's what he needs to do. He needs to scrap it all together. But the fact is, if he continues down this path, it's not going to be helping anyone. It's certainly not going to help himself or his own career chances. And the chances of him getting voted in at the next election are going to be virtually nil. So it makes no sense. He needs to go.
Do you think Keir will let him run?
Well, the thing is, I think the Labour Party as a whole, and even the Tory Party to some degree, have a part to play in it too, because they could have legislated against this, they could have stopped this in its tracks, but they decided not to. They allowed it to happen. Why did they allow it to happen? They knew the impact it would have on people, especially disabled people, elderly people, tradespeople, nurses, carers. They knew the impact it's going to have on all this, but yet they decided to go ahead with it regardless. Why did they do that? Ask yourself a question.
So have you been fined yet?
Oh yeah, mate, I've got plenty of fines, yeah, but I won't be paying any of them. No, I won't be, yeah.
What do you think about the Blade Runners, and how long do you think Sadiq Khan can keep going with the cameras getting damaged?
I don't think he can keep going for long because he hasn't got a finite supply of cameras, and he certainly doesn't have an endless money pot either. The fact is, you know, you can see people don't want this. You can see how unpopular it is by the fact that people are coming out and taking it into their own hands. You know, they're taking matters into their own hands, they're taking cameras down. You know, I don't officially condone violence, but it's not violence. In my book, it's not even criminal damage. We own those cameras. That's the way I look at it. You know, taxpayers' money paid for it.
Do you think there should be structural changes to the GLA to make it more democratically accountable?
Yes. Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, most definitely. Because at the moment, it's not, yeah.
Do you think that Howard Cox and Susan Hall will unite against Sadiq Khan?
United, I'm not so sure about. If Howard Cox, you know what you're going to be getting. With Susan Hall, it's a bit so-so, isn't it? Okay, yeah, she stood up to him a few times in Parliament, in the GLA and things like that. But the thing is, with people like Susan Hall, for instance, they have to toe their party line. They have to go with whatever the party line is. So if the party line suddenly changes overnight, she's got to go with it, or she has a whip removed. Now, someone like Howard Cox doesn't have that restraint. So I'm more inclined to go with someone like Howard Cox than I am with Susan Hall, because I don't really trust the main parties. I think they're both as bad as each other.
So Sadiq Khan is polling at around 33%, and Susan Hall is about 17.5%.
Okay.
So, and the other I think is like 4%.
Okay.
So, do you feel a bit disheartened that the polling isn't like showing more support for anti-ULEZ?
No, because it's still early days, and a lot of people won't know it's hit them until the fines start arriving through the door. And it's only been live a week now, the extension. So I think you'll find towards the end of the month, beginning of October, you'll start to see the numbers go up. Because more people will start waking up to the fact that, hang on, what's this coming through the door? I've got more fines coming through, what is this? You know.
There was a poll that said about 60% of people haven't heard anything about the Blade Runners. So that shows that the awareness is very low for ULEZ.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah. Well, I don't know where you got that report from, because I know quite a few.
It's from YouGov.
Oh, right. Do we need to say any more?
Well, they are biased, but it's the only thing we really have. What do you think about the next, the Convoy? So do you think that the ULEZ cameras are a Trojan horse for other policies?
Oh yeah, most definitely, because you know they didn't. If they really wanted to implement ULEZ and ULEZ was as it says it is, you know, when they say 9 out of 10 cars are compliant, which we know is absolute rubbish, but if that was actually true, they wouldn't need that many cameras to implement it. Why are they putting thousands of cameras up to catch maybe 1 in 10 vehicles? It makes no sense. Clearly they've got an ulterior motive, and we all know that's paper mob. That's where it's going. I think the Convoy is a brilliant idea because, you know, it's all about raising awareness. It's about waking people up to the fact that, look, this is happening on your doorstep. Sooner or later you will be fined for it. You know, and it's also informing people that don't drive that it will affect you too. You know, if you require carers or nurses to come in multiple times a day, so you have like a disabled or elderly relative who requires nurses or carers to come in, their care's now been affected as a direct result of this, because a lot of those carers and a lot of those nurses don't have so-called compliant cars. So they're not going to be able to attend to your loved ones. So these people are going to be affected by it. You know, people who need tradespeople to come in, for instance, to work on your property. You know, your bills are going to be made more expensive as a result. So therefore it's going to affect you too. So, you know, it doesn't matter what walk of life you come from, whether you drive or not, you will be affected by this. And I think awareness days, like the Convoy, raise awareness. You know, it can only be a good thing, definitely.
All right, thanks, man. Appreciate
Thank you,
it.
not a problem, thanks.
So what do you think about Sadiq Khan's chances in the next election?
I hope Sadiq Khan's chances in the next election aren't good, but you know, London seems to keep voting him in, and he seems to keep destroying the city, and they seem to keep supporting it. So we'll have to see what happens.
What do you think about Howard Cox as a candidate?
I like Howard. I think he's good. He did the best yes or no on GB News, so that was really good. And but at the end of the day, you know, London is going to vote red or blue, isn't it? That's what's going to happen.
What do you think about the media coverage of ULEZ?
Well, there are some people that are dealing with talking about ULEZ, but no, you know, none of the mainstream, you know, fake media talk about it, do they? Because they all support it. They're all part of the establishment. They all want the same thing. Both sides of that house in there want the same thing.
What do you think about Susan Hall and Howard Cox teaming up?
Well, it's certainly going to help. It's not going to do her any harm, is it? Because Howard's people are going to vote. Some people are going to vote for Howard. I think the less candidates, the better, to be honest. I think Jeremy Corbyn should stand, and then he could split Khan's vote.
What do you think about the Blade Runners and their effect on Sadiq Khan?
I love the Blade Runners. I fully support the Blade Runners. I'm not really allowed to say that, but good on them. Keep running those blades, boys and girls.
I'm sure you formally disavow.
What's that?
You formally disavow.
I formally disavow their heroic acts, and I utterly condemn the brilliant work that they're doing.
Do you think that there should be structural changes to the GLA to make it more democratically accountable?
I just think the whole thing is just a bureaucratic, administrative mess. Do you know what I mean? It's not, you know, what are you democratically accountable to? It's one party. They just have different coloured rosettes on. They're the same thing. They all have the same set of policies.
What do you think about Sadiq Khan using children as a shield for his own policies?
Yeah. The 4,000 dead people a year. Yeah, it's typical vile politics from a pretty vile guy in a lot of ways. I don't like what he's doing. I hate what he's doing.
Do you think that the ULEZ cameras are a Trojan horse?
Yeah, of course they are. Absolutely, it's a surveillance state in the making. Yeah. And we need to stop it. And hopefully, with enough, it seems like we've got enough damage is being done to them that this might be the one that pushes people over the limit. But at some point, people are going to get fed up of being surveilled, spied on for their own good, and apparently their own good, in the name of a climate emergency, which is being confected by people that fly around on private jets. So I just, you know, I don't have much faith in politicians. I've got a lot of faith in people. And at some point they'll get fed up, and that'll be what happens.
Do you think Rishi Sunak will step in and prevent the ULEZ or stop the ULEZ?
He'll make a lot of promises before the next general election to try and get re-elected, and then he won't stick to any of them. So that's the way politics works. Lie to people.
What's your final message to the voters?
Final message to voters is if you want change, change the way you vote. It's that simple.
Thank you very much.
And how are we going to do it? We drive at will and we do not play. And The Tory candidate is the surveillance state candidate for the mayor. These are nonsense. They're both nonsenses. We've got to defeat Sadiq Khan and defeat the Tory con merchants as well. And we can do it. We will do it. In Birmingham, the council took down the scheme because people were refusing to pay. Get that clear?
Yeah.
Private will do not pay and take down the cameras. We will break ULEZ. We will break Sadiq Khan. And those of you who are worried about your cars and what will happen, do not worry. They will send you bits of paper when you drive a will. They cannot affect your credit rating. They cannot give you a CCJ because Northampton County Court is not a proper court. There's no judge there. They've no powers to do anything. Very much. They can send you bits of paper. They cannot enter your flat. They have no powers of entry. If a bailiff comes to the door, tell him impolitely to go away. And that is the end of it. If you're worried about your car being confiscated, transfer the ownership to somebody else. The demands are sent to the owner. And then the owner says, I wasn't driving. The liability for an offence is the driver, not the owner. They automatically send the owner because they don't know who owns or who's driving. But they don't know who's driving, so we can win. You won't have to suffer at all. Do not sell your old vehicle.
Keep using it.
The scrappage scheme is a nonsense. It's to get rid of all cars, make you have an electric vehicle, and then in 5 years' time, electric vehicles collapse, and we'll have nothing apart from public transport and digital ID, and they'll turn you on or off. Anyone who's got money now should be buying old cars. Buy old cars, they'll be worth 50 times what they are now in 5 years' time. Think about it. Buy them, use them, recycle them. Driver will do not pay. Take down the cameras. And while we're on with it, let's think about what else is going on. This building here are busy preparing another assault on us. ULEZ is one thing, we can win. Keep at it, people. We will win. But at the same time, they're preparing another pandemic lie. The last pandemic was a lie. The virus story was a con. The point of the virus was to introduce the jab. That's what the virus was for, to bring in the jab. The jab wasn't brought in for the virus. No. The whole thing is a game. They're talking big dangers now. It's a lie, a lie, a lie. And what do we do if there's another lockdown? Take to the streets. Take to the streets. Take to the streets. Take to the streets. And any more vac centres, what do? We close them down. Close down all the vac centres. They are to control you and to make you ill and kill you. This populist stuff is put forward as part of the World Economic Forum depopulation agenda. Let's be clear. Who ever heard of a person who wants to reduce population introducing vaccinations to save people? It's a nonsense. The vaccinations are introduced to reduce population. That's what it's about. All of you know somebody who's got ill, and all of you know somebody who's died, or somebody who knows somebody who's died from the injections. Let's be clear. They won't talk about that in there. The fake left going all over the place won't talk about it. The Tories won't talk about it. We have to talk about it and prepare people. So, I better end there with our usual stance on the programme before us now. Driver will do not pay, take down the cameras. Driver will do not pay, take down the cameras. Driver will do not pay, take down the cameras. Break ULEZ, break Sadiq Khan, break ULEZ, break Sadiq Khan, break ULEZ, break Sadiq Khan. And your favourite, resist, defy, do not comply. Resist, defy, do not comply. Resist, defy, do not comply. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Alright, so there you guys have it. That was the ULEZ protest. Got some pretty interesting interviews with Simon Fawthrop, Laurence Fox, and some other people as well. If you guys enjoyed that video, give it a like, subscribe, and comment down below. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.